this is funny because Joe Rogan has talked pretty openly on his podcast about Donald Trump. Um, he's he's kind of taken the middle ground with Trump for the most part. If you listen to what he says about him, he he typically he's okay with policies, Trump's policies and stuff. I think his big bugly boo with Trump is he just thinks his antics aren't professional, which most I agree with. I would rather he didn't pull his bullshit antics and his bullyisms and stuff. It's funny, sure. I think he's a great. I think, and Rogan said this as well. It's funny we share similar takes on this. I think he's funny. I think his comedic timing is really good. I think he's really good with one-liners. He's really good with comebacks at times. So he's funny, but at the same time, you know, professional. I like professionalism in the highest level of government. Um, I think you can have both. I think you can be professional, and I think you can be also anti-establishment, if you will. I think you can kind of shake up the you know the status quo and whatever, if you want to call it, the deep state, all this, whatever you want to call it. I think you can kind of shake that up and still be professional about it. And I think you'd be taken a little more serious if you did it. Where, and I've said this a number of times, I think DeSantis might be like a more polished Trump. But anyways, okay, I'm going to get into this article a little bit. This is from the Daily Mail. It's funny because, well, the Daily Mail is sort of garbage, but it is it's talking about last UFC event, and I guess they ran into each other. So and we'll talk about that. So all is forgiven. Trump shakes hands with Joe Rogan, despite podcaster famously calling the former president an existential threat to democracy and a man baby. I don't remember him saying the existential threat to democracy part, but I'm sure he probably did. The man baby, yeah, I get that, sure. Okay, so former president was met by an enthusiastic crowd Saturday night at the UFC in Las Vegas. While at the event, Donald Trump interacted with several high-profile attendees, including Joe Rogan. Rogan and Trump exchanged a long, friendly handshake despite previous less than flattering comments made by Rogan about Trump. This is the funny thing. I'll keep reading, but interject here for a second. It's the funny thing about Trump. I think he can understand when something's personal and when it's not personal. I think he knows the difference. I think or he just doesn't watch Rogan at all, and he doesn't really know about any of it. That's a possibility too. But I think he's able to kind of put the two aside and say, all right, you know, Joe Rogan can say these things, but not necessarily mean them 100% against him and him as like his personal character or personally against Trump, if you will. He's just saying it as a sort of statement as a whole for the, for maybe I'm trying to frame this correctly, the box of government, if you will. So I don't agree with that statement. He's an existential threat to democracy. I think that's stupid, but maybe it was in jest. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I don't remember that statement. But if he said it, I think Joe Rogan would probably walk it back a little. If he didn't, well, we disagree. So here we go. Former President Donald Trump exchanged a friendly handshake with podcast host extraordinaire. This is why the Daily Irish is just stupid words. Right it straight. Joe Rogan UFC fight in Las Vegas on Saturday night. Despite Rogan's previous colorful, disparaging remarks about Trump, former commander-in-chief, who is currently leading the field of presidential candidates by a significant margin, made a grand entrance to the T-Mobile Arena for UFC 290, where he sat cage side. What a fluff article! Like, really? How do we say 20 words when 4 do? Here you go. Okay, so I don't really need to read any more of that. Rogan smiled at the attention before the pair entered a 10-second handshake that seemed totally friendly. The exchange was circulated on social media, despite Rogan's up-down history of commenting on Trump and his behavior. Again, nothing personal. Like, both can be true. I can think a guy's a dill at his job and still like him. Like, I've known these people. I've worked with these people. I had a guy, I won't be specific. I had a guy that we didn't get along for years. I worked for him, and then he left, and outside of work, he was fine, a different person. And it was that way when I worked for him. And then suddenly he came back and he had to work for me later, and he was great. So it's it's not that straight. You know what I mean? It's not that things are complicated. You can have two things at once. You can have a guy who is, a blowhard, and he's blustery. He's a bit of a bully. He's off color. He says shit like that. Not somebody that you would want for president. And I'm speaking of someone else because I'm okay with Trump for the most part. Um, and then, but also be cool with him on a personal level. I don't see where the massive story is here, but maybe it was a slow day for the Daily Wire. But I mean, this could lead, I think, potentially to maybe Trump being on Rogan's podcast, which would be cool. I think I'd like to see that. So we'll see if maybe he walks it back a little and he actually has him on. That could be the biggest show that he's ever had.